Shalom, shalom. This is your brother Tazaya Amar of GMS Valdosta, Georgia, coming out with another weekly lesson, and I pray that it be edifying as well as informative. But first, we want to give all praises and glorifications to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Rikakadash. Double honor to our apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone for teaching us the true knowledge and understanding of these scriptures. I want to say shalom and a harm to all the aquas and outlaws that are striving and thriving in the same 100% true doctrine. Shalom. Today's lesson is based upon a little small clip I came across today about pretty much how a lot of things are coming out, being exposed. And, you got what they used to say in the old days, slip of the tongue, as the scriptures, Psalm 64 and verse 8 put emphasis on. And it say, so they shall make their own tongues to fall upon themselves. All that see them shall flee away. And as I mentioned there, a lot of things are being exposed, and, you got whistleblowers, and you got just different things that's just being exposed that are being performed right up under our noses. And they've been done in secret. But a lot of those things are coming out now. And with that being said, my next scripture is going to be the book of Job. The book of Job, chapter 15. And starting at verse 4. Job chapter 15, verse 4. Yea, thou castest off fear, and restrainest prayers before the Most High. For thy mouth uttereth thine iniquity, and thou choosest the tongue of the crafty. Thine own mouth condemneth thee, and not I. Yea, thine own lips testify against thee. And that's what happened in these last days, in these latter days. A lot of these wicked, crafty, implementations of laws and unrighteous decrees are being exposed. There's no longer, being hidden. The Most High Yahweh Shema Shai is calling these devils to expose themselves. And they're doing it at a rapidly rate. I mean, it's incident after incidents that keep coming out. And with that being said, my next scripture is going to be the book of Matthew, chapter 12, and we start at verse 34. Matthew, chapter 12, and we'll start at verse 34. O generation of vipers, how can ye, being evil, speak good things? Well, boy, for out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. A good man out of the good treasure of the heart bringeth forth good things, and an evil man out of the evil treasure bringeth forth evil things. And we see this evil is being spread all across Babylon in these latter days. There's just wickedness upon wickedness, iniquity upon iniquity, all over this land. Verse 35. A good man out of the good treasure of the heart bringeth forth good things, and an evil man out of the evil treasure bringeth forth evil things. But I say unto you, that every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give account thereof in the day of judgment. You know, we often have mockers and scorners come up against us while we out there on the highways and byways teaching and preaching. Little do they know that those little smart and snark remarks gonna come right back and bite them in their behind. I mean in a mighty way too. Matthew chapter 12, verse 37. For by thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words thou shalt be condemned. So you got to be careful what come out your mouth. You know, um, the book of Matthew chapter 12, well, not only the book of Matthew chapter 12, verse 34 through 37, but we're going to go to the book of Proverbs chapter 18 and verse 21. Proverbs chapter 18, verse 21. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. Did you hear that? That's so powerful I got to read it again. Proverbs 18, verse 21. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. You know, as I mentioned, hey, you got to be careful what come out your mouth. And they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. You know, certain things that are not to be spoken. Uh, you're speaking evil of something or someone. Hey, that evilness, whatever you are spewing out, can very well come back on you. And be detrimental to even might be detrimental to your health or your life. So you have to be very careful. The book of James, chapter 3, and we'll start at verse 5. James 3 and 5. Even so the tongue is a little member and boasteth great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindle. And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. So is the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and it is set on fire of hell. You know, the little red, there used to be a little saying, hey, that little red thing up under your nose can get that hole up under your clothes, tore all to pieces. In another way, I used to say, don't let your mouth write a check your ass can't cash. And with that, we'll jump down to verse 8. The book of James, chapter 3, verse 8. But the tongue can no man tame. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison. That's so powerful, I'm going to have to read that again. But the tongue can no man tame. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison. Tongue can get you in a lot of trouble. Yep. Speaking out of turn can cause a lot of devastation. And with that being said, well, going back to this clip that I was talking about. First, I want to say that it's going to be a disclaimer, copyright sake. and that has no monetary revenues involved, and that is for just for information and education. And with that being said, here's the clip. So, give me just a minute.
We're just humbly asking that you guys would start being regular adults again, and let's argue about things like infrastructure and healthcare, and not a dying pedophile with cankles tripling his net worth at the expense of the American people. Because that's what this is. And we can all pretend that he's a bald eagle Jesus patriot, but he's not. And no amount of bullshit pretending will make him that. And it's time to stop. It's time to stop embarrassing yourselves and lowering yourself. I just want to say, as somebody that's, some of us are former Republicans, some current Republicans, I want to say, as a straight white man who grew up in the South in a Baptist church and NASCAR dad, and I'm not a beta boy snowflake. I can show anybody that wants me to show them. We all want the Republican Party to stop committing political suicide to save a dying pedophile. It's really fucking embarrassing at this point, and we're just humbly asking that you guys would start being regular adults again, and let's argue about things like infrastructure and healthcare, and not a dying pedophile with cankles tripling his net worth at the expense of the American people. Because that's what this is. And we can all pretend that he's a bald eagle Jesus patriot, but he's not. And no amount of bullshit pretending will make him that. And it's time to stop. It's time to stop embarrassing yourselves and lowering yourself. I just want to say, as somebody that,
And that's coming straight out of Esau's mouth. When we bring these things to the forefront, nobody seems to pay us no attention. But this coming out of Esau's mouth himself. So, as we often say, hey, if you don't believe us, believe the devil. And with that being said, I'm going to close out by giving all praises and glorifications to Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahushua, by Hashem, Yikakadash. Double honors to our apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone for teaching us the true knowledge and understanding of these scriptures. I want to say shalom and ahar to all the aquas and the aquas that are striving and thriving in the same 100% true doctrine. Shalom.